when did munafiqeen started coming about in Islam? There were no munafiqeen in Makkah Mukarramah. Islam is divided into two eras. The era of the time when Rasulullah ﷺ was, it's pre-Hijrah era and post-Hijrah era. Pre-Hijrah era is when Rasulullah ﷺ was in Makkah Mukarramah after he had, from his birth till the time he had migrated to Madinah Munawwara, and in that period there was a 13-year period from the time he proclaimed to be a prophet till he left. So 13 years they were of Islam were in Makkah Mukarramah. Rasulullah ﷺ, in that period there were never any munafiq. Why? Because proclaiming to be a Muslim meant, trouble. So if you proclaim that you were Muslim, then the onslaught of mushrikeen would come on to you, and you would be boycotted, and you would be troubled, and your life would be made very, very difficult. So people, although would want to become a Muslim, they would be sure in their heart that Rasulullah ﷺ is the Nabi of Allah, but they would either keep quiet or they would take the bullet and they would say that, come what may, who we are, and we stand by it. So they were either on this side or on that side. There was no in between. Madinah Munawwara was a bit different. How was it different? It was different because, this is a bit of a history lesson now, but it's important to understand the context of it to know that how Munafiqat came into Islam. There were two tribes in Madinah Munawwara. Those tribes were Aus and Khazraj. These were the tribes that have been there for a very, very long time. They were mushrikeen, and going back, they probably had same forefathers. However, over a period of time, they had developed family disputes and they would be fighting with each other often. To make the matter a bit difficult and more complex, the Jews had also come and settled over there in Madinah Munawwara. Why were the Jews in Madinah Munawwara? They were waiting for the prophet who their books had already told them and their rabbis had already told them that the prophecy is that a prophet who will be the last prophet will come in a land which is an oasis, and that oasis they had identified to be Madinah Munawwara, and they said that Yasrib would be the place where you would go and find, and the prophet would come. The only thing is that they expected that prophet to be from them, right? They didn't expect that it would come from somewhere in Makkah Mukarramah. Now, the Jews were the Jews. Once the Jews had gone there, they started controlling the markets, right? And another thing that the Jews were very good at was making weapons. And now their weapon industry depended upon what? Walls. So they made sure that Aus and Khazraj kept on fighting with each other. No, this is not 2025. I'm talking about 1500. If there are any similarities, it's just coincidence. But they ensured that there was always somebody fighting with somebody else so that their weapon industry could stay alive and keep on flourishing. So they would make, every now and then side with either Aus or Khazraj or do something to keep the two fighting. Eventually, Aus and Khazraj, they caught on to it and they realized that, look, this is too much. We are being played against each other. I think we have lost a lot of blood. We are losing a lot. And the Jews had also started controlling the markets. So the market in Medina, the economy in Medina was also controlled by the Jews. And so much so that all the decision makings were done by the Jews. Aus and Khazraj would even go and, consult them for, like, if they had to marry their daughters and all, and they would, take their opinion that would this be right in an economical sense or not. And the reason why Aus and Khazraj would be impressed by the Jews, again, no coincidence over there, is because they would think that they are more literate, they are more educated, they are more sophisticated, they are more cultured because they have such long history, they're coming back from so on and so on and so forth. So that would also be there. But now they decided that, it's high time that we reconcile and we become one and we let go of all of this and announce that there's one leader of ours under whose leadership we would stay, and that would be the person we will declare as our king. And that person they announced as the person from Khazraj, and whose name was Abdullah Ubay ibn Salul. So Abdullah ibn Ubay Abi Salul was identified the person who would become the king. And he was also said that, he would be crowned, and they had already given the order for his crown to be made, and it was decided that he would be it. Lo and behold, in parallel, something else was happening. What was happening is that when they were decided to boycott the Jews and not get arms from them anymore, now they needed arms to still have some weapons to fight against the Jews if they had to. So they went to Makkah to get the weapons from the Quraysh, because Quraysh has also learned the art of weapon manufacturing and also giving loans on high interests. So they had come to Quraysh, and over there in Mina they met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Jews have always been saying to them, when they would team up and will go and threaten the Jews would, guess what the Jews would go to say? The Jews would say that if you come to threat us, you may overpower us right now, but wait till our last prophet comes. And they would make dua to Allah, Ya Allah, we are here for your prophet. If we are on the right cause, then save us from their tyranny. And they would really start threatening them by your last prophet would come and he would do this to you and do that to you. So these people had heard of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be the last prophet, and now when they came to Mina and met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam introduced himself as the last prophet, suddenly they felt that this is our chance. Why don't we believe in this last prophet even before the Jews do, and then we can go and tell the Jews that now we are the followers of this last prophet and you all have lost again. So this group of 8 people who had come initially, they accepted Islam, they took bay'ah with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent them back with one of his sahabi, and now these 8 people along with Sahabi Rasul anhu, he started working on the rest of the clans to accept Islam. 1 year passes and they come again, and now in a formal manner they accept Islam and invite Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to come to Medina Munawwara and take charge. So here is Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul ready to become king, and here the entire clan has changed its strategy and its own way. The dynamics have suddenly changed. They have now accepted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the prophet. They have accepted Islam, and now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is coming as the leader of the Muslims to Medina Munawwara. Now Abdullah bin Ubay was shell-shocked. He was just about to be crowned. He was just about to be given the leadership of the 2 things, and suddenly, it is all taken away from him. So this particular individual, he had no choice but to accept Islam with the rest of his clan. But in his heart, he was very, very hurt. And in his heart, he made a firm intention that just as Rasulullah has taken the leadership away from me, I will do whatever I can to take it away from him. And that was the birth of Nifaq in our deen. And then, the story goes on, and this person did a lot of things to hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was one of the main culprits who, when the incident with Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha happened, he propagated a lot of people. He became the social media of that time, going to people, telling them, this is what has happened, and passing that information on, and बहुत तोहमत लगाई आयशा रज़ियल्लाहु ताला अन्हा के ऊपर. So he was one of those who did that. In Ghazwa Tabuk, he just took the people, half of the army or more, he took them back, saying that, we have been betrayed, our suggestions have not been listened to. So he suddenly left Muslims hanging dry, high and dry. So there are many things that he did to hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in whatever occasions that he could. But the main point was that he never accepted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a true leader, and he kept on going to those who he felt were weak in their iman, to kept on pulling them away from Islam as well. But look at the beauty of our deen. Although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and a lot of Muslims as well, because of the way that they were, knew that there were munafiqeen among them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had also informed the name of the munafiqeen to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but neither Allah nor Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever revealed the names of the munafiqeen. Reason? Because maybe they are munafiq at this point in time, maybe the iman is weak now, but if they stay in the right environment, if they keep on listening to the goodness, if they just keep on getting convinced by what Islam has to offer to them, maybe that weakness would turn. Maybe they would become firm in their belief. Maybe they would change from becoming a munafiq to becoming a firm follower. And therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encouraged Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam encouraged the rest of us that if you know about a fault of your brother, cover it, hide it. There's a sift of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, a quality of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, it's called Sattar. Right? What is a Sattar? Sattar is somebody that who covers, who hides. And Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala says that just as Allah hides the flaws of you in this dunya, if you are to hide the flaw of your brother, Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala will hide your flaws on the Yawm al-Qiyamah. On the day of judgment, Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala will hide your flaws. So if we get to know about somebody, the first place to go is not WhatsApp. That's not the right thing to do. Do not go and propagate. Cover it up. The only time you should go and reveal it to somebody is if you feel that this person is about to harm himself or harm others, then go and inform those who are in a position to help him or help those who he is about to harm. Right? That's the only time you can go and reveal. Otherwise, you should cover the flaws of others. Talking of munafiqeen, I'll tell you another incident. Now, Jews also started accepting Islam. And as they accepted Islam, they would play a double role. Because, one of the very key things that the reason why we do not feel Islam in our hearts now is because we think, oh, that was something which came 1400 years ago. It was a different lifetime, different ways of, challenges. They didn't have any of this, that what we have right now. But when you study the seerah, the first thing that becomes blatantly obvious is that the lives were no different than what we have right now. Yes, logistically and perhaps in terms of lifestyles, they were different. We would drive cars, they would ride camels, and we live in bungalows, and they would live in sheds. But the social pressure, the social dynamics, the relationships, the complexities, the economic pressures, they were very, very, very much the same as they are right now. And once you realize this, it becomes very easy to then relate to what they were going through to what you're going through. So Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he moved, a lot of Jews wanted to come into Islam because they didn't have that high ego that Nabi has come from somewhere else, not from our clan. But there were a lot of social pressures. How can they just leave their families and their economic ties and everything and just move over and cut everything out? So the weak among them, they would come to Muslims and tell them that we are Muslim, and then would go back to Jews and would say that, we are just going to make fun of them, how stupid and foolish they are. They would fall in that Nifaq. They would have that two-faced strategy.